From the banks of Dewey Lake, it's the Dewey Pod Monster.
Welcome back. My name is John, and this is the Dewey Pod Monster podcast. This is your weekly and original podcast about consumption. We are proud members of the You Run Podcast Network, and you can check out all our episodes and all our co-network conspirators. Yeah, we'll go with that. All their episodes at yourunpodcast.com. With me this week is the host of the Dewey Pod Monster podcast, and his name is Sean. Sean, how are you doing today?
John, I must reduce my guts. John, how are you?
Currently, I'm kind of pissed off because Michigan's still winning this football game.
Side note, time of this recording is the national championship football game. John and I are begrudgingly recording this podcast when we want to be rooting against Go Blue.
For the next probably hour and a half, we're big Washington Huskies fan.
Hell yeah.
Anyway, aside from that, what have you been watching this week?
Well, it's been a short week because we just talked recently. I did get a chance to watch a few things. I watched Midnight Mass on Netflix, which is created. I kind of want to figure out how exactly to explain it without giving it away, but it's created by Mike Flanagan, who was the creator director of a couple other things that are on Netflix, like The Haunting of Hill House, that new Fall of Usher show that's on Netflix. He also directed.
Is he related to Walt Flanagan?
I don't know.
Big Kevin Smith fans on this podcast.
Oh, yeah, I don't think so. And he also directed Dr. Sleep, which is the follow-up to
I still need to watch that.
The Shining.
Like, I've been putting that off for probably a fucking decade now, and because I like the original, obviously, or probably unsurprisingly at least. I've never gotten around to watching that, and I don't really have a good answer as to why, because like you and McGregor,
I really liked it.
Yeah, I've heard more good than bad about it, but I think the only reason I can think that I haven't watched it is anytime that you get a sequel 10 or more years after the original, that usually doesn't go well.
You kind of think, like, how could this be good?
Yeah. Like, why did they wait 10 years if they had an idea?
Right.
Or more? Or was that shit? That was probably closer to 30 in the case of that movie. But
well, Midnight Mass is, so back to Midnight Mass.
Oh, yeah.
Midnight Mass is basically, without giving it away, because it's a show, I think that if it sounds interesting, I think that you should watch it. So it's about a guy who, this happens in the first few minutes of the first episode. I believe it's 8 episodes. It's one of those Netflix things, you know, it could be 5 episodes, could be 2 episodes, could be 100. I think it's
one episode's 15 minutes. The next is an hour and 40 minutes.
Yes, exactly. One's a movie and one's a commercial.
Yeah.
It's about a guy who gets in a drunk driving accident and his passenger dies. He gets put in jail for murder, some kind of murder, maybe manslaughter. And he comes back to his hometown after he gets out of jail, and he happens to live on like an island off of, I want to say like New York. And it's like a fishing island, and the population has declined, and everybody's really big into church. Like the church is a big pillar of the community, and their Monsignor goes off on like a retreat to Jerusalem, and he comes back. Well, he comes back, and he's a really old guy, and he has to be put in like a nursing home or whatever. He's in the hospital because he's recovering, and they send another priest to the town to kind of take over for him while he's recovering, and hilarity ensues. But I didn't know anything about it going in. I had read that, I think I was looking up like, hey, what's a good horror show or a good under the radar kind of horror thing on Netflix, and it came up, and the person who suggested it was on like the horror subreddit or something, said don't read anything about it, just go into it blind. And I kind of agree with that, and it was pretty good. Like I said, I noticed afterwards that Mike Flanagan, like I said, The Haunting of Hill House and Fall of House of Usher have the same main cast members in it. Henry Thomas, who was in E.T., you might remember him like the most as the kid from E.T., is in all 3 things. And he's actually got a couple other, Mike Flanagan also has a couple other things on Netflix. Lati has actually quite a few credits, but I think a lot of his series and stuff, he's did like a teen horror thing on Netflix too, which I can't remember the name of it. Other than that.
Said Mike Flanagan?
Yeah, Mike Flanagan. Other than that, I got a chance to go to the movies, the actual movie theater.
What?
Yeah, crazy. My kids wanted to go see Wonka, so I went and saw Wonka with Timothée Chalamet, and it was okay. I didn't realize it was going to be a musical, So that was interesting. They start singing right at the beginning, and I think I asked my wife about it afterwards, and I said, "Were you surprised it was a musical?" And she said, "Yeah, I didn't expect it to be a musical." And then they started singing, and I thought, okay, this is going to be a musical. It basically tells the story of Willy Wonka before Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, kind of like how he became a chocolatier, kind of. It was okay. I mean, it wasn't bad. It wasn't awful. It wasn't like the best thing I've ever seen, but it was definitely a movie. I mean, it was okay. It fit the bill as being a movie, and it's okay.
Looking at Mike Flanagan's like directorial works, I feel like Dr. Sleep is such a higher bar than the other stuff that he has. Since Dr. Sleep, it's all miniseries. I don't see another film since then. But there's The Haunting of Bly Manor, Midnight Mass, which I know I've heard of that. I haven't watched it. The Midnight Club, and then Fall of the House of Usher.
Midnight Club is the one that's with the kids. It's more like a teen thing.
Okay.
That's the name of it. I couldn't remember what it was called.
Oh, he did that Ouija or whatever, that movie
Ouija
about the
and
board.
Oculus, right? Didn't he do Oculus as well?
Yes, Oculus, which was one of his earlier. Yeah. Okay. He's
got a pedigree.
Got some credits. It looks like a lot of modern horror, which is generally not the kind of horror that I like to play with, but someone likes it.
Yeah, Midnight Mass was good. I liked it. I'd recommend it.
Okay.
It goes places.
As you do. Anything else that you had on that's worth mentioning?
Editing podcasts. I listened to this really good one by these two guys. They kind of sound like schmucks, but it was about this death spa.
Really hoping that
movie.
Okay, you're bringing up our show. Good. So,
it'd be pretty bad if I was, there's some other schmucks.
I mean, I'd be fine with it. It looks like Washington failed to convert in the red zone, those dickholes. Anyway, what did I watch this week? I did go and you added a movie for me to watch that was a short documentary called Bigfoot Beyond the Legend. So I watched that.
How was that?
It's okay. It's a 2023 release, so it's fairly new, and it's it's all shot in 720p. Like, that's how it's shot. It's basically, if you've seen one Bigfoot documentary, you've seen basically everything that's in this one. Like, there's nothing too crazy other than the weird side quests they do about the Wendigo for like 5 minutes, which I was like, I almost want more of that. You're being more interesting about this cannibal Wisconsin thing than you are about the topic of this documentary.
Side note about the Wendigo, when I was in Slovakia. When I was in Slovakia, I went to this craft beer brewery / bar, and they had a beer. It was an IPA. It was called Wendigo.
I went to Wisconsin this summer, and I was looking for Wendigo things and did not find any. I was disappointed. Yeah. I didn't look that hard, but I didn't find any either. But I mean, it was okay. Like I said, they go over a lot. I don't know the name of the tapes that are like really popular, but they go show you the Bigfoot tapes that you've probably seen 1,000 times. And they're like, in some places he's called Sasquatch. In some places he's called a Yeti. I'm like, yes, I'm somewhat aware of this.
Some places they call him the Abominable Snowman.
In Florida, they call him a skunk ape. Like, great. Anyway. So I wouldn't call it overly informative. It's more or less like we have all these things clipped together and we have about maybe an hour of content. Let's slap a Bigfoot name on it and see if we can make a couple bucks. Is kind of how it feels. But I've certainly wasted an hour of time on worse things over the past week.
In some cases, about an hour and 53 minutes.
Is that how long this movie is? Yeah, sounds about right. But speaking of, 43 minutes of my time was wasted watching the movie Moon Maidens, which must have been a palate cleanser of some sort, which is a movie that came out last year about, well, I'll just read you the plot and you can see if you can figure out why I put this on. When sexy moon maidens invade the bodies of 3 Earth women, they learn the meaning of human sexuality. This is a 43-minute movie, which is not living up to its title.
Oh, does it live up to its description?
Nah, no.
That's almost more disappointing, I think.
Yeah.
When you read the description, it's so gonzo and you're like, yeah, this sounds like something. I mean, it is what it is. It's not going to be a masterpiece by any means, but you're going to. I
wasn't expecting a masterpiece. Things. I was expecting like essentially TNA with weird aliens. And I mean, I got some dude ass, which is fine, but that wasn't really what I was going for with a movie like Moon Maidens.
Maybe the moon was his butt.
I mean, that was factually correct, but that's on Tubi if you want to watch that, good old Tubi.
This episode brought to you by Tubi, TubiTV.com.
Unofficial sponsor of the show. Past that, the only other thing I did is I rewatched Return of the Living Dead Part 3 for the first time in quite a while. Have you seen that one?
Is 3 the one where they go into the graveyard? They're like robbing graves or whatever, or is that 2?
That's 2, because that's still got
Tom Matthews and the other dude.
Yeah, I can't think of their names now. I want to call him the guy who played Bert, but that's not right. I can't think of his name now either, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, no, 3 is the one that's it's a good way to put this.
Is the cover the chick with the nails and she looks like a cat?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, she's got like the glass shit coming out of her head and whatnot. And I think 3 is a movie that me personally, I don't think it's anything special. It's a movie. It's in that universe. You know, you get your trioxin, blah, blah, cans or whatever. So it technically falls within that, universe or whatnot. But as I was watching, I'm like, I think I like this movie as a teenager because it had a sort of gothy looking trashy girl on the cover who's kind of trashy looking and gothy and half naked through the movie. And now as an adult, I have the internet and I can find that in other places.
The internet really does invalidate a lot of these movies, at least for watching them for the purpose that you may have watched them in the first place. Yeah.
And I mean, it's funny. I was talking to someone else about it. I was like, the things that worked for you for that as a teenager, like kids today will never know how spoiled they have it with that compared to what we had to do. I was like, we had to go find like boxes of random things left in the wood. God knows what was on them, but we didn't care.
Yeah. I mean, it beats getting hit in the head with a baseball bat, being concussed.
It's true. We already went over that story though, didn't we?
Did we? I don't remember. It may be the concussion talking.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that happens. But yeah, that was pretty much all I watched. I mean, it was a big, as you mentioned, this is the night of the national championships. So this is just coming off the last weekend of the regular season of the NFL. So I spent a lot of this weekend watching the ball of heat, watching our idiot coach get our star tight end injured unnecessarily, but whatever. He'll probably kick my ass anyway, so what do I know? Kneecap bitten, still like him.
Ouch!
God damn it, what was that? But yeah, that's pretty much all I got.
Grit.
Oh, there he is. Is that the coach?
No, I just know a lot about grit.
Know a lot about grit.
He knows a lot
What's
about
your favorite flavor kneecap?
Grit.
It's a flavor?
Hell yeah.
I almost feel like you should have a hell yeah, brother. Like you should be one step away from Hulk Hogan.
Brother. Hell yeah, brother.
But yeah, we don't have a whole lot going this week because it was a short one. This could end up being a short episode. We'll see how it goes. But I think we're going to take a break and then we will roll right into our title of the week, which is technically a movie called Hell Spa. So we'll be back in just a minute.
Hey fam, Newman here from Movies for Days, your non-pretentious easy access movie chat podcast and weekly deep dive into any film from any genre, from any decade with anybody's guess as to how we chose that movie that week. Proud member of the You Run Podcast Network. Check us out where all great podcasts can be heard. And on Twitter at Movies Days. Movies is spelled regular, Days is spelled with a Z.
Okay, so we're back after we just discussed this movie. We're going to now tell you about what we discuss on this movie because we're not very good at taking breaks. The movie Hellspot, this came out in 1992, and we always start with a third-party review, which was a little bit harder to find this week, but managed to pull one out. This review is on Letterboxd by a dude named Ian West, who looks very goth according to his picture. He's got the white face paint or some shit. I don't know. It says, I know. You'd think Hellspot would be great because that title rules, but it just didn't work for me. Frowny face. I'll try you again one day, Hellspot. I'm certain we'll click better then, especially for my next spa-ploitation day, which why didn't we think of that for this month? Anyway.
Missed opportunity.
But in the meantime, asterisk, slowly caresses Death Spa Blu-ray while apologizing for such egregious betrayal of spa choices. Asterisk. 1.5 stars out of 5. I couldn't find a review that was higher than 1.5 stars for whatever it's worth. There are people who rated this around 4 stars, but no one actually wrote anything down that was over 1.5 stars is the highest review that I saw. Sean, do you want to attempt to tell us what this movie, quote, is about?
Sure. So I head over to IMDb where I look up the words Hell Spa and the words that are shown in the storyline and the plot. Number one, we're going to go with the storyline, I think. It says at Benson's Health Spa, business is booming. And why not? With the, quote, look beautiful and stay fit or never pay a dime, end quote, promotion, people are literally selling their souls to join. And then if I go down to the storyline, which I think that's what I said the first one was. This says, at Benson's Health Spa, business is booming. And why not? With the look beautiful and stay fit or never pay a dime promotion, people are literally selling their souls to join. I have to say, on the finish of that, IMDb generally has, if you go to the plot summary or whatever, there will be additional ones under the one that, that they have written there, or somebody else has written one, or could be several. This has nothing. There are no, I take that back. I was going to say there are no reviews. I see one user review on IMDb. So that should tell you that this movie isn't super popular, and you can watch the full thing. John informed me before we started recording, because I didn't know where you could watch this otherwise, besides the place that we watched it, but you can watch it on YouTube. The whole thing.
We bought VHS copies.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I do like that this has a keyword of stabbed in the head. That's not exact. I mean, it does happen.
It happens.
I wouldn't call that a keyword to this movie.
Knockout punch, that happens. Shower, that happens. Kinda.
Does shower happen?
No, there is a shower. Yeah, 2 showers. One was a shower on, and one was a shower scene.
I was very heavily invested in this movie with the guy who tries to kill Toontown fucking over this spa.
Before we get started, I just wanted to mention Hell Spa, this movie. Hell Spa is what happens when you realize halfway into a theme month that it actually has 5 weeks and not 4. So
it's
Hell
also
Spa,
what happens halfway into a different title, that this movie isn't actually about gyms.
Yes, and this movie's barely about a gym. So we're really grasping at straws to talk about Hell Spa here. So
we're going to finish Strawing next week, so we'll make up for it. But,
yes.
Yeah. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, why don't you kick us off? What do we want to talk about with Hell Spa? Hell Spa, I'll start off. Hell Spa is a shot-on-video movie. The beginning of the movie starts off with a woman who's packing her bag, and as she's packing her bag, the radio that she's listening to with some rockin' tunes gets interrupted to tell her that her contract has been terminated. She's trying to talk to the radio, and she's packing her bag, and
it's very James Bond-like or something.
Yeah, kinda. It intrigued me, I have to say.
Or Charlie's Angels, maybe more accurate.
Yeah, some kind of espionage.
Did they talk to Bosley through a radio or something?
Maybe, but this is like a broadcast radio. That's more like an old school speakerphone. But so she's packing her bag. She gets interrupted. She's like really distressed about it. And she runs out of her house I think it's a house. It's like at an auto yard or whatnot. And this mysterious figure all dressed in black starts stalking her. And eventually she trips and
looks suspiciously like the judge from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, except clearly not Christopher Lloyd. Christopher Lee was Dracula.
Yes, Christopher Lloyd. I think he looks, I would equate him to being, that's a good one, but like Darkman before he got all burnt up.
Also good, yes.
Yeah, if Darkman wasn't all burnt up. He's like got a trench coat, he's all covered head to toe, except for his face and his head. So I guess it's not head to toe, with like a wide-brimmed fedora or something that is always half tilted on his head, like, I don't know, looks really ridiculous.
It's the kind of get up that if you see this guy walking down the street, which he does do several times in this movie, you go, look at that dipshit.
Yes, absolutely. I'm trying to see what his name is, the actor. I know he's Mr. X. He's not even like the top guy.
But he's Mr. X, EX, as in ex-boyfriend, not as in Mr. X like the Homer Simpson episode where he was Mr. X on the internet giving away all Springfield's secrets.
He looks like...
He kind of looks like
like Peter Weller, almost.
Okay, I can't think of his name. He kind of looks like the dude who... he's a sex offender, and he was the principal in Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
It's Jones. His last name is Jones, isn't it?
God damn it, where's the fucking cast of this?
Jeffrey Jones.
Anyway, he kind of looks like him, but not, you don't see his hair, so he doesn't have that like fire crotch thing going through the movie.
He's got like a Benjamin Franklin, like the flowing macaroni locks, which there's something, he's like Sid Vicious, but it's not blonde. But anyways, not the Sex Pistols Sid Vicious, the real Sid Vicious, the guy with the rubber legs. Anyways, so we kind of find out as the movie goes along that they have this computer network that runs on DOS, which is really silly, Dragon, and he can look people up. And after this woman gets a floor jack dropped on her head and it crushes it. And they show that. So that's like the practical effects for the movie. And then
there's a couple other things, but that's one of them.
We find out that she had 2 daughters named as loose ends. So now Mr. X is off to try and find her daughters. That takes him to this near college campus where people are working on a college newspaper and a health club nearby. Benson's spa, which is basically at the beginning of this movie. Within the first 15 minutes, they show the spa, and the spa consists of like a weight machine, a plate, and a guy sitting on a bench. I don't know, eating a sandwich or something.
Making the most amazing workout sounds that you will ever hear in any film. I almost feel like we have to go back and like clip them out just to put them in, because they're that, like, I can make a noise like, "Urgh," but it's not even like doing justice to the like goofy. It sounds more like comedic sex sounds than workout sounds.
Yeah, it's like the one, he made two sounds in right after the other.
Right.
And then they just looped it 3 times. Because it's
several times throughout the movie.
Bag the grunts, okay, Gong? Doesn't impress anyone.
I'm struggling with my knacks here, and all you can do is make jokes and chop on fruit.
So Mr. X, just to go back to that, is played by Ron Waldron, and Ron Waldron was in Rapid Fire, not the Brandon Lee one. He was in Speak of the Devil, Hell Spa, Club Dead, which Club Dead is made by the same director. I think it's actually the same movie. It just came out about 8 years later. And the biggest thing that Ron Waldron is known for is That's My Bush, the Comedy Central TV show about the second President Bush.
I remember that fucking show.
Yeah. He played a priest in one episode in 2001, and he has not acted since.
I don't remember if that was a good show or just a shitty show. It must have been great, because I forgot it until just now.
So basically after that, the woman that owns the spa, Mrs. Benson, which all these characters are hugely forgettable. So I can't even remember what her first name is, but Mrs. Benson, she basically sells her soul, or she's committing her gym to selling souls to this guy, and he will in turn make the club popular. He like bankrolls the club, the health club, and the local newspaper people decide this is a story that they should pursue, because they have this guarantee that says that if you don't lose weight, you don't pay any money, and hilarity ensues. As my favorite thing to say, hilarity ensues, except this time it kind of really does, because most of the acting in this movie, most of these people don't have other credits. It's shot on video.
You're not going to know anyone in this movie. There's no one that's memorable.
No. You're not going to recognize a single person unless you watch that one episode of That's My Bush.
Even then, you're not going to recognize them, because I probably watched that episode and I couldn't remember that show.
He plays priest.
Yeah. This movie very much so feels somewhere between like made for TV horror movie and like video store garbage bin. Looking at the cover for this, maybe I could see myself picking this up just out of, I wouldn't have been drunk at that point, but
maybe.
Just total randomness. Well, it could be unlikely. But you put this, relatively speaking, if this was on the shelf that was close to Death Spa, there's no way that you're picking this over Death Spa, even without having seen either of them.
No, based on the cover. It's just a woman laying on the ground with a dumbbell in her hand and a black silhouette with a gray face behind her. And it says Hell Spa on it.
It could be a shake weight. Let's give them some credit.
I kind of feel like up at the top where it says Hell Spa could be, it looks like a dumbbell, but that could be a shake weight. Yeah,
it kind of also looks like the cans from the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the ooze cans. Looks a little bit like that, too.
Another selling
Obviously,
point.
This movie was a major influence on all these things, because when I think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which I think came out right before this, I think Hell Spa. But there are some other things that are kind of funny, like, spoilers for this, 30-year-old movie that you're probably not
never
going to watch.
See. Right.
Yeah.
For good reason.
But you can if you want.
We'll link it in the show notes.
When you get to the point where a guy starts not losing weight, first they berate him a little bit. Like, if you weren't eating hamburgers and fucking cake and stuff, your ass would have lost some weight. And eventually they make him lose weight by cutting off a couple fingers, which was kind of funny because it's a really bad effect.
And fingers clearly weigh 5 pounds each.
Oh, easily. But it's really funny how they kind of do that scene, because the dude, and again, I don't remember this guy's name because it's that important. He goes into his house and he was already threatened at the gym, like, you need to lose weight, fat ass, or, whatever.
Fatty, fat.
By fat ass, I mean, this guy we mentioned a few in our Halloween run up that Shelly from Friday the 13th is the figure that we aspire for at this point. This guy looks like, by today's standards, he's like model of physical fitness compared to Shelly or us, I guess. So he goes into his house and you hear like a little noise of some sort. And then he wanders into his bathroom. The shower turns on, turns up the heat to like 1,000,000,000 degrees because he's in an instant sauna. And dude turns around and Mr. X turkey cleavers his fucking finger off in the middle of the bathroom. And then the fucker still goes back to the gym just wearing a glove. Like, it's all good.
He uses a meat like a meat carver, like an electric carver.
Yeah, it's like a turkey carver. Yeah.
I mean, he has to go back to the gym because now what happens is you basically sign away your soul. I mean, I don't think they really ever get into what actually gets signed, but this in turn helps you lose weight. I don't know how it helps. That never says how it helps people lose weight besides berating them. And they'll be like, oh, I'm on this water diet. And the other thing is it'll make you younger. So if you participate, so the woman, Rona Benson, that's the woman who owns the gym. She drops like 10 years off of her appearance. And at the beginning of the movie, the thing that's weird, and I really questioned it at first, was the first woman that they're kind of chasing around that Mr. X is chasing around in the auto shop. She looks like she's in her 30s. She looks like kind of like a typical bimbo type character. And then Mr. X goes after her daughters, and both of the daughters look to be 5 to 10 years older than the actress at the beginning of the movie. So you find out later as the movie progresses that whatever Mr. X and the corporation, because he works for the corporation, whatever Mr. X and the corporation have going on actually does something that reverses the aging process, but it only seems to happen to Rona Benson, like the people who are at the top of the soul pyramid scheme going on here.
Whatever souls are the most overweight, that's the one that affects.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so it's a kind of a cat and mouse, like the reporters and her boyfriend, who's like the big dumb jock character that's secretly smart and knows computers because he can turn the power on and off of it. Nobody else can manage to do that, I guess.
But they managed to keep his pit stains in focus for
his big bologna slices are in full view the whole time. But so those two are the ones that are kind of, and this other character, Doyle Shakespeare, which she just says, I changed my name to Doyle Shakespeare. Like,
it's
why?
A pretty great name choice, I gotta say.
Isn't?
I mean, yes.
As ridiculous as the rest of this movie is, it is. I mean, it's fine. It's a fine name. But anyways, that kind of happens. They go after the corp. They try to figure out what's going on with Mr. X because he just kind of pops up and he'll threaten and then he'll leave. I kind of think of him as
last hour of the movie or so. Or
is him just harassing these people, basically. But I kind of liken him to Mr. X from the Resident Evil 3 remake or whatever, where I think he's actually in a few Resident Evil things now.
The movie or the
game?
I wouldn't know then. I saw whatever the last one was, they were in Vegas. I don't know what number movie that was. But anyway, I digress. Do you think this is a horror movie? Because I don't really feel like this was a horror movie. I feel like it's trying to go for that horror VHS market. It's clearly advertised that way based off how this cover looks. But I'd say this is a lot closer to like a mystery thriller at best.
Yeah, absolutely.
Than it is a horror movie. I mean, there's moments of horror in it. We mentioned they cut off a dude's hand. They crushed that one head. Maybe there's a couple other things that you could say are kind of like in the vein of horror where they're trying to do practical gore effects, but there's never any tension or like this could be the fact that these are frankly not very good actors and it's not a very well directed or well told story that kind of takes any tension out of it. But I don't even really feel like they tried to build all that much tension to kind of earn a horror title. And we've watched a lot of movies that are horror movies that I think would both say respectfully, like it's not exactly a horror movie. It's just not well done, but it's in the right genre. I don't know that this falls on that.
I think I gotta disagree with you. I don't think it's horror. I think you're right on that. I do think it's a suspense thriller movie. I think that the way that it's shot and because it's on video and because it's really dark and really hard to see a lot of it, and I don't think that's necessarily by design, but I feel like for me, I think I talked about it last episode when we talked about Murder Size, because it has that VHS, that video quality, and it looks kind of crummy and grainy, that adds to like a creepiness factor for me. I know that like now, I did honestly laugh a lot about this movie. I thought a lot of things were ridiculous. I thought a lot of the acting was hilariously not good.
Sure.
So in that respect, it was worth a watch, and that took me out of the element for horror. But they do a few shots. They try to do a few establishing shots that build tension There's the whole, anytime there's a chase scene where it's just so dark you don't see Mr. X and he's kind of talking with his real booming voice from somewhere in the darkness, I find that to be kind of disturbing in a little bit of, in a way. And I don't know if I don't think that's probably the intention. I think they intended this to be a very scary movie and they just didn't take any of that shit into account. And, we're watching this 30 years later on our HD TVs or 4K TV in some cases from a VHS rip, which it's only shot on VHS. That's why it looks like that. So I think it's unintentionally creepy, but I don't think it's a horror movie. And they hide so many of the kills in these, like, where someone gets stabbed and they show like a hand punching someone or something, and then the face of the person like doubling over, and there's no payoff to any of it other than, somebody getting choked, but not really choked. Or there's a couple scenes where people get actually stabbed.
I was going to say, I did laugh at the head stabbing. That's pretty funny because it happens so effortlessly that, because I don't get the impression that, I think they try to imply pretty heavily that Mr. X has some kind of unspoken power of some sort. Like, at least that's kind of the vibe I got from it.
Yeah.
But he doesn't really demonstrate that. He just seems like generic movie bad guy, for lack of a better move.
Yeah, he kind of has the teleportation powers. That's pretty much the only thing. And he just shows up places that you don't expect him, but it's more of a real cheap device than a power.
Yeah, it feels more like plot armor than storytelling when he does it.
While we were talking, I looked it up, and I put a link in the little chat here, but I looked it up, and Mr. X appears in the Resident Evil 2 remake, I believe. And if you look, I'll link it in the show notes, but if you look at what this character looks like, it is Mr. X from this movie, except you can't see this guy's face. You can see the character's face in the movie because he's constantly in it, but he's got the black trench coat, boots, the fedora, not quite as wide brimmed, but it's almost like...
Oh, yeah. This character, the Resident Evil character, is definitely buffer and has a smaller hat. But it's
more of a menacing character. But it's almost like, did they see
this?
It's
also 6 years after the fact. Yeah, maybe.
you poor fucks. You really sat through this movie?
No one's going to know that we ripped this off.
Right. Nobody's ever going to see this shit. But like I said, I think that this movie, there's a movie that the same director, Mike Bowler, is the director. He only made a few movies, but he made a movie in 2000 called Club Dead, which I believe is also shot on video. I wasn't able to find that one via my sources, but yet. But I think I have a real strong feeling if you look at the entry for Club Dead, some of the same characters are in it with the same names. So I'm thinking it's like a remake and they just called it something different. Like Augie Blunt, who plays Rock, who plays the guy who gets his fingers cut off. He's in it. Deirdre West plays Mrs. Benson. She plays the same character. Ron Waldron appears again as Mr. X. Lisa Bowden, who played Kathy in this Hell Spa movie, reignites her role. So
I was looking at this just from the cover, like maybe we should watch this, and I'll just compile my anger at this movie.
Yeah, I think it's the same movie. It even says connections edited from Hell Spa, which makes me think that Trivia, the flashback footage, which comprises the majority of the film, was shot in 1990. So I almost feel like maybe it's like a Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 kind of thing where the whole movie is just addition on top of the original movie. It's an interesting idea to be an interesting watch. I don't think we'd have to have an episode about it, but I'm always really fascinated by stuff like this where they remake a movie.
Their own shit.
Yeah. And they just redo it. Maybe, maybe it's like an Evil Dead situation where they had more money, but I highly doubt this is going to be that Club Dead is any better than Hell Spa.
How did you feel about the medieval axe wielding cop that uses said axe to chop an apple randomly? Because my initial thought was, where the fuck did that come from?
That was a really out of nowhere thing. And the character, the cop, is so inconsequential to the whole movie. Like, he just shows up. They go to report people missing.
Makes his own kill scene, essentially.
It's foreshadowing for his death.
Well, the first time they show him, as I mentioned, they're in there like, oh, some shit's going on at the spa, help us. And he literally produces this axe that looks like it came out of the medieval aisle in Halloween USA. It's
Spirit
ridiculous.
USA or something. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he straight up chops an apple in half that's on his desk. And again, this is the most practical way to eat a piece of fruit, clearly. And then again, this movie goes on forever. So 4 hours later in movie time,
4 hours later.
They come back and his whole office or whatever is covered in like plastic, like Dexter was just there like 5 minutes before he got in there. He can't figure out how to answer his phone and hang up properly. And then he manages, if I remember right, does he trip and fall on his own axe and that's how he dies?
Yeah, he
Something
like
stupid
slips
like
off
that?
the desk or Mr. X pushes him or something. But I mean,
Something like that.
he's working for Mr. X, clearly.
Right.
Everybody works for Mr. X.
Was I the only one who thought his character was unnecessary, but his medieval axe totenness was just about as random as this movie gets?
Yeah, the only note I took about it says the cop falling on the axe deserves it for being such an asshole and cutting apples on his desk with it. I mean,
my note said, where the fuck did the medieval axe cop come from? And
it's
now
like
that
a
I've
mini
said that out
axe,
loud,
too. It's not like a big like double hander, but it's like a little hand.
yeah,
axe.
it's like he went to medieval times and it was, axe day as opposed to mini bat day or something.
The gift. Yeah, like a little bat, right?
But now that I've said this out loud, I kind of want Medieval Axe Cop to be a movie. That alone as a title would get my attention.
Hey, if this movie could be made, you can make that movie, and it shouldn't be much. Wouldn't be any less interesting.
Someone who has talent could, but I'm not that person.
Well, this movie was made. That's all I'll say about that.
This is true. So we've kind of touched on it. This movie is like 17 hours long. It's. I feel like I'm still watching it, even though we've been talking about it for the better part of an hour now.
We're living in it.
We're still in it. Yes.
It's listed. The copy that I watched is listed as an hour and 48 minutes. IMDb listed as an hour and 30 minutes. And I think you said the YouTube version.
It's like 146 or something like that.
Yeah.
Right
so who knows how long this movie is? It felt like forever.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those movies. I wouldn't go as far to say I checked it because I don't think I had my watch on when I was watching it. But I definitely had several moments in the movie where I was like, why the fuck is this still on? Let's fucking get the show moving here. There's tons of scenes of people, for some of the other movies we've talked about this month, all the movies we've talked about this month up to this point, they all have probably a solid 2 to 10 minutes of just random aerobics and like people bouncing around in them. This movie has like maybe 20 seconds of that.
Yeah.
And it's the same clip used over and over again. But I would have preferred 10 minutes of that as opposed to the 10 to 15 minutes of people running in the dark aimlessly or shit like that,
Yeah, a lot of stumbling around in the dark. The last scene takes place in this building, and I don't think we really need to worry about spoilers because, again, 30-year-old movie that's available on YouTube if you want to watch it on like 2 or 3 speed. But
for sure,
the last 20 minutes or 30 minutes, that's usually in a movie. The last 15, 20 minutes is the part where it really escalates and you get all the wrap up and all the action generally happens in that, the denouement.
It's
so to speak.
Climax.
Yes. It's called a climax for a reason, folks. It doesn't last long and it's very intense, but this is like...
And it's over.
Yeah. And this is not. This is like a Scooby-Doo chase scene between the doors in the hallway, trying to insert a 5 1/4 floppy disk into a computer to run a single command where the computer refuses to run it, talks back to Kathy, the reporter who discovers Mr. X is the occult, by his words. She runs this program on the computer, and the computer has a self-destruct sequence that warns everybody in the building how long it's going to take, and it says like, you have 30 seconds to comply, and that scene lasts like 5 minutes.
It starts with 10 minutes, and I like that there's 2 people in the whole building, period, that run out, and it looks like they just found whoever was around, like random guy in the street. Hey, will you run up this hallway for $5? Like, I need help with this Hell Spa movie.
Yeah, if you run under the front doors, we'll give you $10 each. We'll spend half our budget on this scene. And then the whole building explodes.
Yeah, very unceremoniously.
Like it literally explodes. Some building, it's not like a Lethal Weapon 3 explosion where the building blows up. It's like, and then kind of fade to black. And then at the end of the movie, we see that Mr. X is surviving. The computer system is down, but he's now negotiating a contract to, I don't know, buy tires or something. It's just like low-level crime at its finest, like give me a good deal on these 4 used tires and I'll, make your store sell 10 tires this week. It's just some stupid ending, and it's laughable.
I don't know. I don't really have a whole ton to say. I only have one other little bit on it that I haven't mentioned yet, but I'll throw it in at the end. So do you have anything else you want to add before we start hot dogging it up on Hell Spa?
No, I think my hot dog rating will say everything I need to say. It'll wrap up all my final thoughts.
So I'll kick us off since I think you did last week. So for me, I mean, this movie, to be perfectly honest, for the score that I'm about to give it, is still more entertaining than the other movies I've scored like this over the past year. And I know we're in a new year, but I'm including 2023 with this. This is probably about 3.5 like poorly written command line prompts out of 10 hot dogs. I did find it entertaining that as whatever her name is, the reporter was typing her commands, that she started every command with the word type. Like, well, it's been a while since I've used DOS, but I never typed the word type into DOS. I mean, frankly, this movie, it looks like shit because it's a VHS rip that was shot on like a handy crappy cam. It is poorly acted. It is fairly unoriginal in the storyline. It's not scary, and it is, 1990s go get 'em attitude trying to make a movie. That said, I'm not mad that I watched it. I would have preferred it if it was actually at the hour and 30-minute point as far as a runtime, as opposed to the hour and like 70 minutes or whatever that I got. But there's enough little stupid things that happen in this movie, enough little cheesy practical effects, and enough really moments that just happen type things to at least keep your attention and not make you totally pissed off that you watched it, unless you just don't like this kind of movie at all, in which case I don't know how you found Hell Spa or this show for that matter. So is it like a masterpiece? No. Is it something that you need to rush out and watch? Also, probably not. But if you want to stagger into it, via YouTube or wherever else you happen to find it, still better than fucking Cobweb or It's a Wonderful Knife. I'd watch this 1,000 times over that. So
I would definitely watch this 100 times over watching Paranormal Highway.
That too.
100%.
Absolutely. There's no Papa John's pizza dick in this. So
I'll get into my thing. You can call me Oscar the Grouch because I love trash. Hell Spa, it's just fun. It's a fun shot on video suspense movie that's way too ambitious for its own good. When I say shot on video, you mentioned it, VHS rip shot. This is shot on a consumer level video camera. This is nothing professional was done. The editing is actually pretty impressive if it's all shot on video crap. And not to say that everything shot on video is crap, but this is definitely crap. It takes the plot line of trying to use this gym as a front to get people to sign away their souls. I think that's kind of a little bit inventive, but it ends up being more about a college newspaper reporter trying to expose the secrets of Mr. X and Mr. X chasing her around. And when I say college newspaper, like when they get their print run of newspapers, they print literally 50 newspapers, so it can't be that popular of a newspaper anyways. Like, it's not going to take down this gym anyways. There's not much gore. There's really none. I mean, a guy uses a badminton racket as a defense weapon, which I thought was hilarious. Like Rock, who gets his Rock spelled ROQUE, by the way, who gets his fingers cut off, and that probably he loses at least 50 pounds from that. The fact that it's shot on video and extra fuzzy added some of the charm and added a little bit of suspense for me, I thought. The acting's laughable. The way the whole movie's put together just adds to the campiness. But the movie, like you said, it feels like it's 5 hours long, and it's almost an hour and 50 minutes long. And there's really next to nothing to fill that time. And like you said, my rating will sound low for how much kind of praise I've added in this little summary, but I thought it was fun. I'd watch it a lot more times compared to some of the other crap that we watched in 2023. But it's really drawn out to the max with minimum effect. And I got to give it 3.5 electric carved off fingers out of 11 hot dogs.
So we're pretty much in lockstep with that, which is good. And I forgot about the racket that he tried to use to swipe into his running shower. Like,
swatting flies in the shower. And Mr. X just like swats it away. He's just like, come on, fool.
Fuck off. Yeah. So with that in mind, let's just go right into our question of the week. I wrote this in case people didn't know what a camcorder was, because I don't know. Maybe people are listening to this who don't know what that is anymore. But
wow.
The question of the week was pretty simple. It's, what is your favorite film that is shot on either a camcorder or with a phone? So we're basically talking handy cam / a lot of found footage responses, but I'm not totally shocked by that.
And we're talking shot on video. That's what this SOV, that's what this genre is called.
Not POV, that's a whole different website. We're not going to that.
Well, it could be a POV movie that's not that kind of movie, but I prefer to watch that kind of movie.
There's a pretty funny POV scene that they used in that Doom movie with The Rock at the end of it.
When it like emulates the game, right?
Yeah, when he like, I forget how he gets on it, but he essentially is like on cocaine all of a sudden, and they basically go first person shooter on it. I was like, this scene is so stupid that it just justified this entire shitty movie. But that's a whole different. We'll do. Yeah, there's probably a whole month worth of shitty video game movies we could do too, but that might be a challenge. So anyway, we're going to start over on Facebook today. And our friend John on Facebook, who is not me, it's a different John, said, at the time, I really liked the first Cloverfield movie. Probably hasn't aged well and definitely was never the best movie, but it was fun. I wasn't a big fan of the original Cloverfield, but I did like the sequels quite a bit.
I like the original. I thought it was really kind of smart for the time.
I saw it in a theater and it gave me
same.
motion sickness, and I think that's why I didn't like it.
Oh, yeah.
Too much shaky cam, but whatever. Over to Instagram. Let's see. Attack of the Killer Objects simply said the movie Unsane, which I think that one comes up again, but are you familiar with that one?
I'm not.
Okay. So we're taking notes on these. These could come back up. Our good friend Jordana over at Pretty Killer Podcast, she says, ooh, this is a tough one. Then added the movie Host, Hell House LLC, Wreck, which I think is short for Record, Creep, Blair Witch are all top notch. So Host I haven't seen yet, but she's recommended that to us before. And usually if she's recommending it, it's probably pretty decent, unless there's a clown in it. Hell House has a clown in it. You know, we'll get to that at some point.
Yay.
Yeah. I did like the Creep movies. Both 1 and 2 are pretty good for what they are. It kind of shows you what you can get when you watch a handycam movie or this kind of movie with actual actors in it. There's kind of a surprising amount of difference in there. Did we bring up Blair Witch recently? I feel like we just talked about this in the past like couple days. Did this come up during our recording last week, or was that just when we were bullshitting?
I don't know if it came up there during the recording, but we definitely talked about, I think that was after show last time.
Okay.
But go back to Jordana's recommendation. Have you ever seen Wreck?
I have not.
I haven't seen the English one, but I saw the Spanish one, and I don't know if it fits in the spirit, and I don't think, I mean, for that matter, I don't know if Cloverfield does either, but I don't know if it necessarily fits into the spirit of the question, but Wreck, the Spanish Wreck, is like, I think that's a great movie. That's one of my favorite horror movies that has POV mixed with like camcorder stuff. And I'm not going to split hairs about the question. I mean, I'm not doing that because I couldn't find a way to properly say, give us your trash like Black Devil Doll from Hell and, you know, this movie. Like I can't write that question without. I don't think a lot of people have actually seen shot on video movies. Like if you've seen them, you know what they are.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of what I was getting at. Like and this is going to be a recurring theme with these. And a lot of these movies that have come up, truthfully Cloverfield and Creep and not so much Hell House, but a lot of these are actual production found footage style films, which is kind of a whole different thing than this type of crap that we're talking about.
Yeah, still good answers. I mean, regardless, I don't mean it to sound like I'm shitting on these answers.
Yeah, I'm not trying to shit on them either. Like,
well, for the listener, you know, letting them know that we know we're in on the joke.
Over on X or Twitter, I got to scroll up in these. So Boomer over at Podcast in the Woods has chimed in. You can follow them at Woods Podcast 1. Included the movie Incantation. It says, it may not be the best film, but it deserves way more hype. Its unfolding mystery is generally very good and has one hell of a creepy ending. I have not seen this movie. This person's hands on the poster look creepy to me, though. They're like doing the bloods thing, but it looks more weird.
It says it's on Netflix.
Is it?
That's what the Google says.
I can't ever find anything on fucking Netflix unless I know what I'm looking for. So at HissyFaceX, Pearl has said, Deadstream, it was an awesome mix of Evil Dead meets douchey Blair Witch Project. Perfect blend of funny and gross. Deadstream is great. Again, a little bit higher production quality than what this is, but it is a very fun movie that I anticipate we'll be talking about at some point this year. I don't know when yet, but sooner than later. At Adamson_Jimmy. So he says, The Secret of Cuck Island, which came out in 2022. I responded, I'm amazed this isn't a porn movie because I looked it up. It's on IMDb and it doesn't read like it's a porn movie. And he responds, it's not technically a porn movie. No.
All right.
Moderately interested in it now just because of that. So our friends over at the Gray's Tap Room, which is at Gray's Tap Room Pod, said Hell House LLC Origins, the Carmichael Manor, which I haven't seen that one. I
That's
don't know.
the new one,
I
isn't
think
it?
is that the new one? I don't know.
I think
There's like
so.
4 or 5 of them now.
Yeah, I think the Origins is the newest one, though.
Because nothing says 5th one in the series like the word Origins.
You got to set up a baseline to have an origin,
Absolutely.
unless you're a Marvel movie.
You add around this if you want, but I really like this name for a podcast. We might have missed the boat here. Shoot the hostage. So
I like that too.
Shoot the hostage at STH Pod says Unsane. It was a bold choice and established for an established director, but made for a really claustrophobic movie. Okay, so this is the second person that brought up Unsane. Do you know which movie this is? Because I don't. There was
Is it
2 of them.
Steven Soderbergh?
I don't know. That's the one I'm
Is this
looking
the
at
one
right
that he
now.
shot on an iPhone?
Probably. Young woman, blah, blah, committed to a mental institution. That's probably what it is. Unsane's come up twice now, so if you want to check that out, which maybe we'll do that, that's on Amazon Prime right now, so you can get that for a couple bucks, worth checking out. At Pop Cult Ref Pod, or Pop Culture Reflections Podcast, answered, got to go with the Blair Witch Project and the Heather Snotty Nose crying shot. It gets made fun of, but it's very effective. I almost feel like Blair Witch is one of those that's kind of in between with this because of when it came out and how found footage wasn't really a big thing at that time. Like it almost falls into this, but looking back at it, I still see that as like such a higher bar than what some of these are that we're talking about.
I think I did read this one. I do think this one kind of falls into it because it is a mix of whatever millimeter, like actual film, and then
Right.
high 8 stuff, where it's filmed on a camcorder.
Newman over at Movies for Days, or at Movies Days with a Z. So the movie Tangerine. I have heard of this movie. I have not seen it. Have you seen this one?
Mm-mm.
What's Tangerine? Let's look this shit up.
A hooker tears through Tinseltown on Christmas Eve searching for the pimp who broke her heart.
Is that it? Serious?
That's what it says.
It is. Well, shit, we're going to have to find that. Newman, if you're listening to this, I want to watch Tangerine. This sounds like a fun fucking movie. Sean, do you have an answer for the question of the week this week?
I've got 2 answers for this question of the week. Going more towards the shot on video thing and less POV. My number 1 answer, well, I'll start from the bottom. Number 3, Black Devil Doll from Hell, of course. Number 2, Tales from the Quad Ed Zone, Chester Novel Turner, of course, masterpiece, mastermind, genius, best director of all time. And Hoop Dreams, which is a documentary that was filmed on a camcorder, shot on video kind of thing. Follows a few different kids from New York, I believe, and their dreams of making it big in the NBA and college hoops. So those are my picks. How about you?
I didn't put enough effort into this one, so I'm just going to double down on Black Devil Doll from Hell and say, go ahead and torture yourself. Watch that movie. Go back and listen to our episode on it. It's probably the episode that comes up about more as far as us talking about this show in passing. So go subject yourself to that. Well, I thank everyone for chiming in and giving us your response to the question of the week. We'll be back next week with a new question where you can always find those at all our social media outlets. We are at Dewey Pod Monster all over the place. If there is a social network out there, that's where we're going to be. You can find us at Dewey Pod Monster. You can also find all our old episodes at crap.town, or of course at the YouRunPodcastNetwork.com, or at the YouRunPodcast.com, where all our episodes are as well as our fellow network co-conspirators. And Sean, what do you have going on? What do you want to talk about to wrap this week up?
I was just going to say, if you want your answer to the question of the week answered and read on this show, you can find us on all the social media at Dewey Pod Monster. Also, again, want to throw a big shout out to whoever it is anonymously who's been voting on the polls that I've been posting on these episodes. Much appreciated. Hopefully you are enjoying the poll questions. If you want to answer those polls, you can check us out on Spotify. You can answer the poll. You can also answer the question or sometimes give us comments, give us feedback on the show. And you can find all my Michigan beer content at youtube.drafttherapy.com. Find me on social media networks. Social media networks, is that a thing? At Draft Therapy.
All right, so that's all we got for this week. We're going to be back next week with one more episode to get good and sweaty, all that gross shit. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good week.